Hare Krishna. Question: was Yudhisthira the most immoral among all the Pandavas because he gambled away all of them and even the innocent Draupadi? Answer: not at all. Yudhisthira Maharaj is known as Dharmaraj. He is the most virtuous person and definitely the most virtuous among the Pandavas. And even his gambling was actually a result of his virtue, not his lack of virtue. So after Yudhishthira Maharaj performed the Rajasuya Yajna and it was very successful, Vyasadeva, who had presided over, who supervised the performance of the sacrifice, met him and told him that, "O king, this sacrifice will lead to great fruits, but after 13 years there will be a great war and you will be the cause of that war, and after that your rule will become stable." So at that time, and he said that war will kill the world's leading Kshatriyas. So Yudhishthira became concerned, even alarmed, and he did not want to become a cause of such violence. So at that time he took a resolve. He said that violence is caused by harshness. So he said that from now on I will not speak harshly to anyone. I will not differentiate, I will not discriminate between my children, my son and others' children, and I will obey my elders' command as if it were the command of God. And in this way I will try to avoid dissension. So his intention in taking such a vow was that if he can avoid harshness, if he can avoid conflicts, then that may lead to the avoidance of war. But unfortunately, this very resolve that he took, that I will not I will not be violent, I will try to avoid dissensions and conflicts, that worked against him. Because when Duryodhana came up with the evil plan through Shakuni of having a gambling match, rigged gambling match, then he manipulated Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra sent Vidura as a messenger. And because Yudhishthira had taken a vow to follow the instructions of his elders, and he saw Dhritarashtra as a worshipable elder, like his father, who in turn was like God for him, so he could not disobey him. And when he went there, the first thing that he said is, he protested as much as he could. That he said that, first he said, gambling is the root of all vice and conflict. There should not be any gambling. That's what the first thing he said to Vidura when Vidura came with the message. But then Dhritarashtra's instruction was there. Even when he went to the gambling match, at that time the first thing he said to Shakuni and Duryodhana is that gambling leads to conflict, and why do you want to take from me the wealth that I want to use in service of Brahmanas, service of the Brahmanical culture? And then he said, I don't wish to attain any wealth from you, therefore why should I fight? Why should I play the gambling match? So he gave clear reasons for not wanting to play. And then Shakuni said, oh, if you are afraid, there is no need to play then. So, but I am challenging you to play. Now the Kshatriya code was that if one is challenged, one should not refuse. And that alone was not the reason. He was challenged, and along with that, the instruction of Dhritarashtra was there. Then after that, also, now the normal gambling match, as per the normal rules, would have been between two equals. So the amount of wealth that Yudhishthira could stake, Shakuni could not stake that. And if Duryodhana played the match, Duryodhana was not such a evil genius at gambling. So when Duryodhana said that Shakuni will play and I will stake the wealth, so Yudhishthira protested strongly. He said, this is against the rules. The person who plays, that is the person who stakes the wealth. This is against the rules. But then, even then, Dhritarashtra remained silent, as did all the Kuru elders. And then Yudhishthira again protested, and he said that actually it is forbidden that, he said, the sages have told me that if you want to play for the sake of playing. Don't play with professional gamesters. And Shakuni was a professional gamester. He had spent hours and hours practicing and perfecting and gambling, and he would constantly play with professional gamesters, and that's how he had become a maestro at gambling. And still, again Shakuni laughed and Duryodhana laughed and he says, you don't want to play, don't play. If you're afraid, don't play. So they confused the issue over there, and Yudhisthira obeyed not just because one cannot refuse a challenge, but he could not refuse the command of an old elder. Now we could say that Yudhisthira did commit a mistake. That mistake was that he got carried away in the fever of gambling, and he gambled away everything. During the course of the gambling match, when they had lost a lot of wealth, Arjuna gently tapped on the shoulder of Yudhisthira and shook his head, indicating stop now. But Yudhisthira felt that I already lost so much. Sure, I must gain it back. Otherwise, how will we live? I've lost our wealth, I've lost almost our kingdom. And that's why desperately, the desperate hope that somehow he would be able to get back things, he gambled away everything. And again, if he just wanted to gamble away, he gambled away actually himself before he gambled away Draupadi. So if he had been really driven by selfishness, and a person won't make himself a slave, if a person will want to sell others away before he sells himself. So he actually sold himself, and actually the thought of gambling Draupadi also did not come till there was nothing left. And Shakunti with his evil mind suggested that. And then, so this was, we could say that the extent to which he gambled, that was a mistake. And the subsequent section of the Mahabharata, this is the Sabha Parva, after that the Vana Parva, Yudhishthira repeatedly laments that. And his lamentation is not that, oh, how I have lost all wealth. His lamentation is twofold. He says that my loved ones, my faithful brothers and my chaste wife, they were subject to such mortification, humiliation because of me. And his second lamentation is that I am not able to serve the Brahmanas now, because he was himself of such a virtuous disposition. Brahmins loved to be around him, and then he loved to maintain them, take care of them, give them charity. And his lamentation was that I cannot take care of them. And it was because of that he did tapasya and got Akshay Patra. So we see his lamentation was also based on virtue. It was not based on just self-pity, oh, that I have lost everything. He says, I have become the cause of suffering for others. And if he had been less virtuous, then when he was departing, actually the citizens allowed the Pandavas. And citizens said, for us citizens, you are our king. We want to live with you. So we will come out with you to the forest. And in fact, the Kauravas are so sinful that they have cheated you of wealth and they have dishonored your wife. We will become contaminated by sin if we live with them. So we don't want to live with them. We will come out to the forest with you. So there was dissension among the citizens, and there could have been rebellion also. But what did Yudhishthira do? Yudhishthira told them that Bhishma, Vidura, they are, and Kunti, and Dhritarashtra, they are our worshipful elders. If you want to do something for me and for us Pandavas, then please do this one thing. Please don't do anything that will increase their misery. So now we sort of say that Dhritarashtra might have been gloating in pleasure, but he knew the others were miserable. And a rebellion from the citizens, and again having to curb that rebellion by force, would have been agonizing for virtuous rulers like virtuous members of the ruling class like Bhishma and Vidura. So he says, please don't rebel against them, don't speak against them, please try to serve them the way you would have served us. This is what I ask from you. So this is the extent of virtue that he had, that he did not want to use manipulative means. And then if at all we want to say about virtue and compare the virtue of Yudhishthira with others, then we see that towards the end of the exile, when the exile was almost over, at that time in the kingdom of Drupada, the Pandavas were living, and eventually a Brahmin's wealth was lost, and they all went to try to regain the Brahmin's wealth, and then they came to the lake. They were thirsty, and then what happened was Nakula was sent, being the youngest, was sent to see if there's some water available. And then he came to the lake of death, where he was told, first answer my questions, then drink water. Now Nakula, being unable to resist the thirst, he neglected the question and drank the water, and he fell as if dead at that time. Then after that, same happened to Sahadev. Now after that, Arjuna and Bhima, when they came, they were not just overcome by thirst, they were overcome by anger also. He says, who could have killed? And Arjuna shot arrows here and there. And an invisible voice told him that, first answer my questions, don't drink the water. So he shot arrows everywhere. But there was nothing that was hit by it. And then Bhima also whirled his mace around and tried to attack. So and eventually both of them, they went one by one. They also they succumbed to thirst, drank the water, and they also fell as if dead. When Yudhisthira came, he did not succumb either to thirst or succumb to anger. And when the invisible voice, that was the voice of actually Dharmaraj, his Yudhishthira's father only, who was testing them, and who was testing them in the form of a yaksha. So first he heard the voice, don't drink this, without first answering my question. He says, this lake belongs to me and you cannot steal from me. So Yudhishthira, we say his virtue, he says, I do not want to steal from you. Please tell me how I can get back my brothers. And if you have any questions, please, I'll answer those questions. So if you want to compare, this incident is very clearly demonstrative that Yudhishthira was more virtuous than his brothers, that he did not succumb either to thirst, nor did he succumb to the physical urge for thirst. He did not succumb to the emotional urge for anger. So he remained fixed in virtue. Yes, there was a immorality on his part. And of course, again, if you want to compare, at the end of the Mahabharata, there is the description of the Swarga Arohan Parva, the last Parva. So all the other Pandavas fall away, and it's Yudhishthira alone who reaches Swarga. And that time also, a dog has accompanied him to Swarga. I won't tell the whole story here, but all the other Pandavas, they fall away one by one. Even Draupadi falls away. Yudhishthira alone reaches, and a dog has accompanied him. And then when they are climbing up the Himalayas, and then finally when they reach the top, Indra comes over there. He says, yes, you can come to Swarga now, but this dog cannot come with you. So now, why is Yudhishthira first of all alone able to reach to the top? Because he alone is most virtuous. The others, they have had some moral lapses because of which they cannot reach. So then so Indra says is that you can come, but dogs are not allowed into heaven. So he said, this dog has taken shelter of me, and he has accompanied me for all this. I cannot abandon him. So then he says, you will not be able to come to Swarga. Then he says, okay, but I cannot abandon one who has taken shelter of me. And that time the dog also transforms into a deva, and then they bless him, and then they all come back, and eventually when the Pandavas also attain an auspicious destination. Actually in the Mahabharata, they are depicted as if going to Swarga, because Mahabharata talks about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. I have answered this question elsewhere in about why Dashrath Maharaj went to Swarga. They did not actually why they went to Swarga and not to the spiritual world. That is a different issue. But the point which we are making over here is that the Yudhishthira Maharaj was most virtuous, and he was so virtuous that even when he had renounced his kingship, he still wanted to preserve. He was still, even when he did not have the privilege of kingship, still he wanted to preserve. He wanted to do the duty of kingship. So similarly, if we see in that same lake of death, Yaksha Samvad, when Yaksha asks, and Yudhishthira answers some of his questions, Yaksha asks, okay, I will revive one of your brothers. Whom do you want to be revived? So he asks for Nakula to be revived. He asks, and then the Yaksha is surprised. He said, if you want to regain the kingdom, then actually for you, Bhima or Arjuna are more important. They will be able to win the war for you. So why are you asking them to be someone else to be revived, some of the other brothers? He said, one should never give up virtue for the sake of selfishness. And he said that Kunti has one son alive. So Madri should also at least have one son alive. That's why I'm asking for him. And seeing this adherence to virtue, Yaksha becomes pleased, and then he reveals his identity and revives all his brothers. So this is, even in the times of great crisis, Yudhishthira Maharaj always adheres to virtue. And we see, if you want to compare again, another time is when the Gandharvas attack Duryodhana, because Duryodhana in Kamya, when he wants to parade his wealth, and the Gandharvas arrest Duryodhana. So some other Kura soldiers, they come and run to the Pandavas for help. Pandavas on the other side of the river, and at that time Bhima starts laughing, and he says that is what we would have had great trouble to do in future, the gods have done for us. Wonderful. And he's very happy. So what does Yudhisthira say? Yudhisthira says that this is not the time for pettiness, O Bhima. You know, our royal family members, our royal ladies have been insulted when they have been arrested. Now Duryodhana did not think of Draupadi as our royal lady. He saw her as merely the wife of his opponents, and he wanted to dishonor her. But Yudhisthira had no such malicious intentions against those who were not directly to be blamed. In fact, he had no malicious intentions against anyone, practically speaking. So he said, within we may have a conflict between us 5 and them 100. But for outsiders, we are 105. We are united. We are all Kurus. And it is our family members who have been dishonored. Go and help them. He says, I would have done that, but I am performing a sacrifice and I cannot get up right now. So here also we see the virtue of Yudhisthira. So, and relatively compared to other Pandavas, his virtue is higher. So we should not give in to arbitrary readings of the Mahabharata or interpretations which have been done by uninformed or misinformed people who try to twist the facts and portray Yudhisthira as immoral. Even if in the worst case we say that there is a one immoral lapse, but overall his character was exemplarily moral. Thank you. Hare Krishna.